365.
Business Matters. The title suggests many things. The important issue is the world revolves around business. Society, organizations, individuals, and even religion survives and thrives because of business. Business has to encompass not just financial commodity and service transactions. It has also to include welfare, justice, empowerment, environmental, and other issues too. Every week, Business Matters will delve into aspects of business that impact our lives. We will seek out extraordinary and ordinary people who have done extraordinary things. Facilitators, educators, and entrepreneurs will be invited to inspire and enlighten our listeners. Join Anwar Moolla for an interactive show and find out what really matters in business.
نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. It's Monday evening. It's the Business Matters program. Yes, we've just come through Ramadan and Business Matters was off air for the month of Ramadan. I hope you all have had a truly spiritually uplifting Ramadan. For those of you that are keeping the 6 extra fasts of Shawwal, Alhamdulillah, well done to you. And inshallah, 2 days gone already on those fasts. Yes, Business Matters back on air after Ramadan. And I'm pleased to have company in the studios today. I have 2 young gentlemen with me. Their names are FAEEZ TAJMOOD and ZUBAIR MOTALA. And both of them are from a company called QUANTIFY, and they are the partners of QUANTIFY. QUANTIFY is an accounting stroke CA company. Generally, during the period of the budget speech, which is generally the last Wednesday in February, we have a budget presentation. Normally, we get Yasmin Suleiman from Bowman's Attorneys to come in, and she gives us a lovely presentation on the budget. Unfortunately, this year we did not have a budget speech because of the month of Ramadan. And so we've got the 2 gentlemen who are both CAs to come into the studio to give us a little bit of enlightenment on the budget that has just taken place. And more than that, but more specifically to talk about the big change that came about in terms of VAT or VAT in the budget and the advantages and disadvantages of registering and deregistering for VAT. So we're going to talk specifically on the VAT issues, but generally on the budget as a whole. They're going to give us their expert opinions on the budget and how good it has been for us or how bad it has been for us. The program, the Business Matters program, brought to you by the Minara Chamber of Commerce, and you with me, Anwar Moolla, and I'm presenting for today. So let me just introduce the 2 gentlemen to me. FAEEZ TAJMOOD, CASA from QUANTIFY. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Radio Al Ansar.
Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah, good to be here.
Thanks for coming in. And ZUBAIR MOTALA, also from QUANTIFY. Thanks for coming in and welcome to Radio Al Ansar.
Thanks so much. Wa alaikum salam, Anwar. Good to be here.
Okay. So guys, let's just get straight into the topic, which is the story regarding VAT in the last budget. Zubair, if you want to just kick off by telling us what exactly changed with the VAT threshold in the 2026 budget, and when does this take effect?
So I think critically, the big thing that happened with regards to VAT, I think everybody was sort of expecting a VAT rate change, just to sort of raise more revenue, but that didn't happen. What actually did happen was, a bit of relief from the Minister of Finance and from Treasury, is that the VAT threshold was actually increased, VAT compulsory registration threshold, from R1 million to 2.3 million rand. I mean, it's a significant bump. It's not the bump everyone would have wanted, but it's a bump nonetheless, and it helps. I mean, I think it's the first time VAT has been increased or the VAT registration threshold has been increased in about 19 years or something like that. About 17 years. 009, yeah. Yeah. So it's been a welcome change. It's helped a lot. It helps sort of SMEs with the administrative burden. But yeah, that was the critical change that came to VAT, and it's effective from 1 April.
So FAEEZ, if I may just bring you in there, sure. Some people submit VAT on a monthly basis. Some people submit VAT every 2 monthly. And some people don't submit VAT at all because they're not on the threshold, as Zubair spoke about the 2.3 million threshold. So just take us back historically into who previously had to register for VAT, and who paid VAT every 2 months and who paid VAT on a monthly basis?
Sure. So with regards to the VAT threshold, right? So the VAT threshold historically, as Zubair mentioned, has been R1 million. We're going 17 years now that it's been in that situation. So I think welcoming a significant increase on this threshold was taken quite well by the public. Well, prior to that, just for your knowledge as well, prior to that, the VAT threshold was 300,000. So SARS tends to
not do anything and then jump.
Overlook the VAT threshold, keeps it quite tight, and then suddenly just jumps the bar. So this was a long time coming. It had to come. With regards to who actually qualifies for VAT or who should actually be liable for VAT payments, there's no distinction. SARS doesn't see if you're running as a company, running as a CC, running as a trading trust, sole proprietor. What SARS does is it does a test of whether you're an enterprise. So if you in the form of trade, so if you have any sorts of trade, whether you're trading in your personal capacity, you're trading under a company threshold, whatever revenue, and that's obviously your sales, whatever sales you do out the door within a 12-month period is measured. And if that exceeds R1 million prior to this budget speech, then you would be liable for VAT. So with regards to being monthly and bi-monthly and then not registering at all, there's thresholds in between. But the administration would be put on the R1 million threshold. So increasing this now to 2.3 million rand, a little bit more allowance from trading and from an actual allowance from a VAT registration point of view, but the compliance still remains.
Okay, so who would submit VAT on a monthly basis, and who would be obliged to provide VAT on a 2 monthly basis?
So generally, if you're under R1 million taxable turnover in a month,
right?
Yeah. You don't generally have to submit on a monthly basis. You can go on it every 2 months. And importantly is that you don't really get to decide. So SARS will have a look at your last couple of months turnover based on your VAT returns, and they'll just issue you a letter and say, right, now you're on a monthly basis, and that's what happens.
Okay. So the general situation is you're on a 2 monthly basis until and unless SARS sends you a letter one fine morning to say, you now need to go on a monthly basis.
100%.
I suppose the larger companies will be submitting on a monthly basis because it makes the revenue collection that much more efficient.
Absolutely.
Correct. I mean, SARS at the end of the day is government's cash flow machine, right?
Okay.
And they're trying to get in as much cash flow as they can.
Yeah, and the frequency of their earning is obviously through the VAT, because everything else is periodic submissions like your income tax and so on and so forth is periodically. So you normally get it twice in the year, whereas VAT is normally on a monthly basis.
Okay, so now let's take the example of a company whose turnover is over R1 million and they've been submitting VAT, but they're under 2.3 million rands in turnover. So this is annual turnover, right?
Yes.
What would be the situation for a company like that?
So if you registered for VAT, no matter what your turnover is at its current position, SARS will never come back and ask you to deregister. So if you've been registered in the past, and even if your turnover drops to even 100,000 rand a month or even less than that, 10,000 rand a month, SARS won't come back and say, now is your time to deregister, right? So that will remain, and there'll be no obligation on you to deregister. You can obviously voluntarily deregister if you fall within the threshold. So at this point in time, it's 2.3 million. And just to mention, the effective date of that is on the 1st of April of this year.
1st of April. So we're on the doorstep, basically.
On the doorstep, right? So post that, if you can prove to SARS that you're going to be earning less than 2.3 million, you can deregister.
Well, not earning, but your turnover is going to be less than 2.3
million.
Correct.
So when I mentioned earning, it's turnover, but that's absolutely an important distinguishing factor, because it's not your profit, it's not your money in the bank. You could be even sustaining losses, but if your revenue or your turnover is above the threshold, then you have to register for VAT.
Okay, so there's an opportunity for people that are basically between that 1 and 2.3 million turnover to deregister.
Correct.
Okay, now what we're going to explore, and that's critically why we're here tonight, is what are the advantages of deregistering and what are some of the disadvantages of deregistering? Because I think there's a bit of mixed feelings amongst yourselves as well, where some are saying deregister and some are saying, hey, hold it. Don't deregister. There's some advantages of still being registered for VAT. So let's start right there with ZUBAIR. And what are some of the biggest financial pitfalls of deregistering for VAT right now?
So, there's three critical ones. not necessarily financial, but there's financial pitfalls, there's credibility pitfalls, there's all these sorts of things that come with it. So, I mean, the first thing, very important, and it's a bit technical, but the moment SARS accepts your deregistration, everything that you've got in your business that you claimed VAT on now becomes a deemed supply. So SARS says, if you have stock to the value of 115,000 Rand in your business,
Right.
and you're deregistering for VAT, no problem. You pay me that 15,000 Rand back that you claimed. That's a critical point.
Right.
I mean, there's an immediate cash flow impact. So the deemed supply rule is a very, very important
So
thing.
would that be on all stock in the
Stock,
business?
equipment, everything you claimed VAT on,
Right.
everything that you still hold in your hands as at the date of deregistration,
So this is unsold stock.
unsold stock,
Right.
unsold stock.
So you got to pay VAT immediately on any stock that you hold in your business that has not been sold as on the date of deregistration. Now that can be massive, because some companies may hold, their turnover may not be high, but they could be holding millions of rands of stock.
Correct.
Okay, so you got to pay, right?
So there's a deemed supply rule. That's an immediate output tax.
And would that be on things that you bought previously, like office furniture?
Yeah.
And things?
Yeah,
On all of that.
it's on all of that.
So not only that, I mean, it's all of your equipment that you would have claimed VAT on, which rakes up to quite a bit. And over the years, if you've fully stocked up your warehouse with equipment and anything machinery related, those could be lots of money that you need to. So what SARS does, it says at a point in time of deregistration, you need to value all of those equipment, and you take the lower of cost or market value on that, and then you need to give me back that VAT portion. So it's stock, it's any sort of machinery that you have, commercial property that you may have been purchasing within that, So that's it could be a significant impact.
That's a big one. The second big one that you have to consider is that all your expenses now suddenly cost you 15% more.
Right.
For everything. I mean, professional fees, subscriptions, telecoms costs, all of that stuff. Rent now just goes up 15%. And that's not necessarily a cost.
And
that
so
you can
does the
pass
cost
on.
of your goods go up by 50%?
Exactly.
Because you're not claiming the VAT
You're not claiming the VAT back.
Right.
That's a critical thing. The other thing is that it's a credibility issue, right? So if you're dealing with large corporates, if you're dealing with government, if you're dealing with bigger businesses, the default thing is, are you a VAT vendor?
Okay.
Right?
The next question after asking you whether you BEE registered.
Correct. 100%. 100%. So you've got to deal with all of that kind of stuff. And it just creates a bit of a credibility issue when you tell them, no, I'm not VAT registered.
Okay.
They
think you're a Mickey Mouse business.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's all these sorts of things I consider. I mean, everybody's instinct is just say, you know what, there's an administrative burden that I don't have to deal with, and I don't have to pay the accountant X rands a month to deal with this. But I mean, realistically, the costs of it can far outweigh, the benefits of deregistering. You're saving some admin.
Okay, so FAEEZ, let's talk about some of the advantages. Now we know some of the disadvantages which Zubair has pointed out.
Sure.
And they're quite significant. But let's talk about some of the advantages of deregistering. As Zubair has also said, one of it is perhaps there's a bit of a saving on admin fees because you're not having to submit VAT returns every month or two.
Yes.
So a little bit less work for the accountants. But what are some of the other advantages?
So the advantages would be, again, the administrative burden. So as you mentioned, accountants, or whether you're doing it yourself, you now don't have to do that bi-monthly submissions, which is again an advantage. Another one of the advantages is that then your pricing point, if you're supplying to consumers, which is your normal day-to-day people out on the road, so if it's a retailer and stuff like that, then that VAT percentage that you normally pay to SARS, you don't have to pay that across anymore, because that whole revenue number becomes yours. And then obviously your costs, you won't be able to claim the inputs, as Zubair mentioned, but there's items such as your payroll costs, which were never VATable in the past, but were true costs. Some other items that may be in there that were not VATable, that you can't recoup back on, right? Like your entertainment costs or interest or whatever it is, those costs remain the same. So you could actually be in a situation where your margins start increasing, right? But again, to mention this, it's a very niche space, probably, or very limited space. I think the disadvantages at this point far exceed the advantages. And I think just to explore on that is that the business needs to take a complete view on this before considering deregistering. So the view needs to be is that where is my business going to be in the next 3 to 5 years, right? Are we going to be staying south of 2.3 million or south of previously a million, or are we actually going to be growing the business? And if you're looking at growing, then that should be just factored as part of your strategy and not be looked as a burdensome dealing for the entity. So in this situation, and we've chatted extensively at the practice on this, is that your disadvantages far exceed your advantages unless it can be proven otherwise. So the default position should be, this doesn't benefit me at this point in time. Another advantage that may not be apparent is not the deregistration process, but it also with entities that are coming up. So advantage would be that you get a little bit more leeway before you hit that VAT threshold now, if you're a new starter business. Okay. So it gives you a little bit more of allowance to say, let me test the waters, let me see how good the business is. And maybe R1 million is not the best test. Now you got till 2.3 million to say, let's test it and see if this business works. And if it does work, then VAT becomes a real thing, and then you start putting it into your strategy. But you should, as a mindset of a businessman on day one, consider VAT as part of your strategy. That's the way we always position it.
So, if I may ask you, is I mean, speaking to some people in the industry, and you guys would know better, is that they're saying if you want to get a VAT registration number from SARS at the moment, it's a very, very difficult thing to get.
It's an extremely complicated process. Or not complicated. The process itself is not complicated. It's just an extremely bureaucratic process.
Right. So how long is it taking to get a VAT registration?
You know, we've got some that have gotten done in 2 weeks.
Right.
We've got some that have gotten done in 6 months.
Okay.
Really.
Yeah.
And it's just a mess of issues, and really it's a number of things. Your e-filing profile is wrong. Your biometrics are not correct. The registered representative on the profile for income tax is not the same as the one for VAT. You know, you give them supporting documentation. That supporting documentation comes back because nobody's looked at it. Even when somebody does look at it, previously you could get an approval at branch level. So you could walk into West Street, go to the VAT department or the Mshlanga branch, get an approval and get it done. Not anymore. Right. Now, you know, every VAT application happens here at the branch level. The branch is essentially a post box. It goes up to Pretoria. Pretoria has to vet it. They come back with questions. It's a long process. It's a long process.
So your advice is, if you are registered,
keep it.
Stay registered.
Keep it.
Okay. My technician tells me we have to break for the Isha Azan. So, gentlemen, when we come back after the Isha Azan, we're going to maybe explore other parts of the budget that we had recently, and you guys can give us your expert opinion on the budget and your thoughts on it. And we're living in very, very uncertain times at the moment. Volatility all over the place, and maybe we can have a small discussion around what is really happening economically out there at the moment. So with that, let's stop for the Isha Azan.
Radio Ansaar, 24/7, 365.
This Azan is sponsored for the Isale Sawab of Marhum Muhammad Farooq Latib and all Marhumeen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them the highest abode in Jannah. Ameen.
أعزائي المستمعين، حان الآن موعد أذان العشاء لمدينة دربن وما حولها.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته وارزقنا شفاعته يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
This dua brought to you by Simplex Radio, South Africa's leading retailer of appliances, car sound and home theater systems.
These surahs after Azan are brought to you by Amina's Wonder Spice and Wonder Dates, 9 Peters Road, Springfield, Durban.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس.
Having a clean, comfortable home is every homeowner's pride. That's why Khan's Chemicals have developed and manufactured prime yet affordable quality household brands. Starlight, Miracle Mum, Exterminate, and Angie to care for your home and family. With a wide range of fabric softeners, dishwashing liquids, bleachers, and all-purpose cleaners, pine gels, bubble baths, and much more, Khan's Chemicals ensures your home remains our #1 priority. For sales and other inquiries, call 011 933 4021. Khan's Chemicals, cleaning your home the way you want.
Radio Al-Ansar, 24/7, 365.
Business Matters.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you've just joined us, you on the Business Matters program with Anwar Moolla. Business Matters brought to you by the Minara Chamber of Commerce. I've been having a discussion on VAT registration and deregistration and the new rules or the new thresholds with FAEEZ TAJMOOD and ZUBAIR MOTALA, both partners at QUANTIFY Accounting. And we're going to now move on to a general chat regarding the budget speech which took place in the last week of February, which we didn't get a chance to unpack because of Ramadan. So, FAEEZ, some of the major changes or in the last budget speech, favorable and not so favorable?
So I think some of the favorable stuff moving in the right direction is increasing some of the thresholds, some of the minimum thresholds. One of it being the tax-free investments that's being allowed from individuals. So now you can invest up to 46,000 rand.
And it used to be 36,000.
Used to be 36, yeah. So it's now up to 46,000 rand. It's a nice little extra allowance that's been given.
It's a nice little encouragement for people.
Absolutely, and I mean, I think the government has gone a long way into encouraging people to invest,
to save, yeah.
Correct, saving towards your retirement, and it's a nice little encouragement. So that's one of it. The other one is the increase of the minimum threshold for moving monies offshore. As an individual, it used to be 1 million rand. Now the minimum threshold is 2 million. So you can move monies up to 2 million rand almost unasked from a Reserve Bank point of view.
Zubair, some of the...
Look, so, and I think another nice one, which we haven't seen for a while, I think 3 or 4 years, is the bracket creep.
Yes, it's a little bit more take-home pay
Yeah,
for everybody.
Yeah, you know, so they've made that adjustment upwards. Finally, I think people are quite happy about that. You know, you mentioned the single discretionary allowance. That's an important one. That's, I mean, 2 million rand offshore. It's a big help for guys that are trying to externalize funds. And you know, then the retirement fund deduction. I mean, that moved from 350 to 430. There's been some changes on CGT. So as an individual, your capital gains tax exclusion was 40 grand. It's now 50 grand. Some changes on donations tax. It was 100 grand. It's now 150 grand that you can donate without paying donations tax.
That's quite an important one as well. And that moved after a very, very long time.
After very long. I mean, I can't remember, yes, in my professional life, a change in the donations tax threshold. So that's a nice one.
Yeah, it's a powerful tool if you have a trust as well.
Correct.
I mean, to utilize that, because I mean that helps quite a bit. I mean that's a 50% increase in your allowance per individual. So,
and also the amount that you can put in away towards a retirement annuity.
Correct.
I mean that's also
correct. It helps.
Yeah.
You know, all these things that are there, and I think that really came from. I think it was if you looked at the medium term budget statement, I think that was pretty bullish as well. And even with that, they really exceeded their revenue targets and their growth. You know, their growth projections. They were projecting further growth. I think that might change a little bit now based on what's going on in the world. Just another thing important to note, and I think it might be important in the community, is crypto assets. So crypto assets were largely unregulated previously.
That's right. Yeah.
And people sort of, you know, use it as a dumping ground. I think it's important to note that those things are going to be regulated going forward. And there's a real big drive on digital wallet systems. So SARS is looking at these digital wallets, you know, the shop to shops and that sort of thing that's going on. And they're going to be doing deeper dives into that. In fact, it's a focus for next year's tax collections. So it's just something to keep in mind there. But on crypto assets, I think important is that, you know, a movement from a crypto asset is a capital gains tax event. So if you bought a Bitcoin at 100 rand, you sold it at 200 rand, there's 100 rand capital gain there.
Okay.
And people seem to realize that. But people don't seem to realize that if you bought Bitcoin at 100 rand, sold it at 200 rand and moved into Ethereum, that's still a transaction. It doesn't mean that you moved from a crypto asset to a crypto asset, so there's no CGT.
Yeah.
Even if you move from Bitcoin to Ethereum to Ripple to whatever, those are all capital gains tax events.
I suppose it's the same if you move from one unit trust to another unit trust.
Exactly.
Even within the same company. But if you, for example, move from an equity fund to an income fund, whatever you got out of the equity fund would be subject to capital gains tax.
100%. 100%.
So it's quite consistent in that respect.
100%. But you know what? At the same time, I think it was a good budget. I think it was a very tax base friendly budget. I think they did what they could, and I think they realized that there was a lot of burden on the tax base. I think it's the bulk of tax collections in this country come from individual taxpayers.
That's right. Yeah.
So they gave them some relief, which is, helpful.
Okay, FAEEZ, Zubair touched on the issue of the revenue as collected beyond the expectation. But I would think some of the reason for that, or one of the main reasons for that, was because the commodity prices have been so high. So the commodity companies, the gold companies, the platinum companies have all been performing well. So revenue from those type of companies has exceeded expectations. So that brings me to our next point, which is where we are at current and what's happening in the Middle East, and maybe opportune time, because we're living in a very dynamic situation, to spend the next 5 to 7 minutes to just discuss what is happening out there. So we saw today, Trump made a noise about he's negotiating with the Iranians, and suddenly oil price came down, commodity prices went up, the stock market was in a negative 2.5% situation. Suddenly it was sitting positive 1% just by a statement that was put out. So I think there's a real fear at the moment in the Middle East, obviously with the Strait of Hormuz being closed, that oil prices are going to shoot up. We possibly are going to catch it next week when the petrol prices and diesel prices are announced. And I think we're in for a rude shock if things don't stabilize between now and then. So give us a bit of your take of economically, where are we, and how much is this whole situation in the Middle East going to hurt us?
Sure. So I think I'm going to start off with what you mentioned about influence, and we've been seeing this over the years, is that when there's media influence, it tends to disrupt markets, and we've been pretty sheltered from it to a certain extent. So for example, you mentioned Trump saying something and it changes the entire world. So what is happening in America it's been happening for a number of years. Like, Elon Musk will say something and then Tesla will either go up or down. His ex-Twitter company will go up or down. He dictates the market. He dictated cryptocurrency because he has such a strong following. People used to back what he says, or sometimes people used to go to the negative. If he says something positive, then they'll move to the negative because they sort of feel that he's trying to steer people away. So that sort of influence thing that hasn't been there in the past has now been the driving factor for a lot of it over the last 5 to 7 years. And then with regards to Trump and he's dictating what's going to happen economically, geopolitically, it's important that everybody takes a point to listen, because if you don't listen, you might just miss the mark. With regards to how this actually affects us, the fuel prices, for example, are going to hit us. That we're not going to be able to have any sort of guard against that. That's going to hit us. The shortage of fuel has already been seen well across Europe. We've been, again, guarded to it to a certain extent, but we're going to feel that impact now. And our lag is normally, because we're at the bottom of Africa, we have a little bit of a lag, so we get to see what's happening elsewhere.
And our fuel prices are normally adjusted only once a month.
Correct. So we almost certainly expecting a massive whack on the fuel pricing. We're also expecting a bit of shortage of fuel at the pump. Just recently there's been some stuff doing its rounds on social media where diesel has been overpriced at the pumps as well.
Yes, I saw some clip regarding that. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's happening already, and we just obviously haven't seen the effect of it. So this is not. It's a factor of, okay, travel is going to be a bit more expensive for us as consumers of fuel and stuff like that. But with fuel pricing, transportation pricing increases, and when transportation pricing increases, we import vast majority of our commodities in South Africa with any aspect. So even in our agriculture, we import some of the fertilizers. When it comes to FMCG goods that we're buying on the shelf, majority of it is imported. When it comes to manufacturing, so your larger manufacturers out there, your Unilevers and Toyotas and all of these guys that right at our doorstep have a lot of imported products in there, and that factors into the pricing of the actual product being manufactured, and the end result is that we're going to be paying more as consumers. So these are all the hidden sort of taxes of what's actually happening. And with the Strait of Hormuz being closed up, the ripple effect of it is going to be massive, and we're expecting. We sort of holding for a bit of rupture there.
So Zubair, if I may close by asking you the last question, which is turn our attention a little bit to the Middle East and speak about Dubai, for example. We know people have left there in droves. There's talk of property prices having gone down already by 20 to 30%. And what was regarded as a very, very safe haven for people and land of milk and honey, suddenly the reality has hit home that, hey, we're not so safe here any longer. So what's your take on the Middle East, Saudi, UAE, and what the dynamics of what is going to change there?
Look, my view on it is that it's still a place with relatively good fundamentals. I think from a corporate structuring point of view, I think from an ease of doing business point of view, I think those things are still there, and I think they're still relevant. I think we always knew that it was sort of in a political hotspot, and everybody kind of knew that this pimple could burst at any point. So what a lot of people, sort of did was use it as a jumping off point. So, structure out of there, but not necessarily hold your wealth there. And move it into other havens, or move it into safer climates. So move it into Europe, move it into the East, the Far East, and that sort of thing. My view on the UAE, I don't think its shine is lost yet. I think it'll recover. But I guess, it really all depends on what happens in the next couple of weeks and months, really. It depends how far, Iran, the US, and Israel really want to push this.
Okay. FAEEZ, some closing remarks from you?
Yeah, so I think our discussion, a lot of positives, lots of obviously things that needs to be taken into consideration. So I think from a geopolitical point of view, hard to predict. Just make sure that there's plenty of information out there, that information is refined properly, and whatever you do, digest it in the right way. I think that's the most important thing.
Zubair, besides the fact that I've made the connection with you in that your grandfather and my mother were first cousins, so yeah, we are Hagas, so to speak. But some closing remarks from you on the dynamics of what is out there at the moment.
Look, I think it's natural for people to sort of get concerned and start worrying and start hunkering down, and that's okay. I think, again, as South Africa, we're pretty well insulated against larger market shocks. Understand, inflation is going to go up. The Reserve Bank is going to raise rates. These things are going to happen. If your business is geared, I think, now is a good time to start sort of consolidating, start getting rid of some of that gearing, start bringing down those borrowings, because we will start to see a rise in interest rates. It will happen. And whether you're banked, conventionally, or you're banked Islamically, it's going to happen. Even our Islamic banks are all benchmarking against the rate.
Yeah.
So I think now is not the time to make rash calls. Don't make big decisions. Just play the course for a while. And let's wait and see, really.
Okay. I suppose it would be too difficult to put you guys on the spot at the moment and say, where do you call the RAN in 3 months' time? It's anybody's guess.
I was looking at something, and initially when we were writing, and we wrote a little article on the budget speech and put it on our LinkedIn page. So there's a little shameless plug, but it's a quantified chartered accountants if anyone wants to take a look. But and we had a look at it then, and we were trading at just under 16. I think, and some guys, I know I was talking to somebody out of Investec, and they were anticipating, 1547 by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that was the 26th of Feb, right? And I'm looking at it now, literally on my phone, and we're sitting at 1680.
That's right. And I think it went over 17 Rand.
It went over 17. It went over 17. So yeah. Yes.
Very hard to call.
Braver men than me have tried.
And got it wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Gentlemen, lovely speaking to you all. Thanks for coming in and joining us on the Business Matters program. So FAEEZ and Zubair, lovely having you guys here. Thanks for making the time for us. And I'm sure the listeners are going to benefit immensely from some of the advice that y'all have given them this evening. So with that, it's wassalamu alaikum from the Business Matters program. I think I'm not here next week, traveling some way or the other, but inshallah the show will go on, and I hope to see you again in 2 weeks' time on a Business Matters program. So with that, it's wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Business Matters. The title suggests many things. The important issue is the world revolves around business, society, organizations, individuals, and even religion survives and thrives because of business. Business has to encompass not just financial commodity and service transactions. It has also to include welfare, justice, empowerment, environmental, and other issues too. Every week, Business Matters will delve into aspects of business that impact our lives. We will seek out extraordinary and ordinary people who have done extraordinary things. Facilitators, educators, and entrepreneurs will be invited to inspire and enlighten our listeners. Join Anwar Moolla for an interactive show and find out what really matters in business.